Welcome back to Not So Grand Garage. Today we're out in the driveway working on the old 300 SD. It's got a coolant leak. So it's had this coolant leak for a little while. So we're going to tear everything apart. We're going to basically rework the whole cooling system. New hoses, water pump, thermostat. Going to flush everything out really good. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit. So let's get started. We're going to be draining the system out first, and we're going to fill the system and drain it multiple times with straight distilled water, because the previous owner decided to put standard green coolant in this. From everything I've read, Xerox G05 or Mercedes-Benz blue coolant is what should be in it, so that's what we're going to go back with. So let's get this flushed out. The cooling system on this car has been in rough shape since I got it. We got a split in the hose here, which has been leaking a little bit off and on, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but the coolant bypass hose down here has also been leaking. So we're going to replace all that, but for starters we need to drain this cooling system and start flushing it out. Cooling system's drained, so now we are just going to fill the system back up with straight distilled water. See if I can do this here. Oh, yeah, there we go. And yeah, I'll fill the system back up, let it run a few minutes, and then drain it back out. I'm going to repeat that process at least 3 times. That will get the majority of the old coolant out, and fill the system mostly with distilled water. And then once I pull everything apart and replace the water pump and the thermostat and all the hoses, I'll start with filling it back up with coolant. The system holds approximately 3 gallons from my understanding. Might have to check that. But so I'll go on and dump a gallon and a half of straight coolant in it, and then top it back off with distilled water when we're done. Okay, I went on and installed one of the coolant flush tees, the back flush tees, right here in this line. This is where the previous owner had installed a T-fitting to heat the rear veggie oil tank that was in this car when I got it. And I had since deleted that system, and that was just plugged off. So instead of leaving just a plugged hose there, pulled all that out, went on and put a T on it, and back flushed the system for 20 minutes with tap water. And that got all of the sludge and green coolant and nastiness out of the cooling system. Since doing that, I've plugged everything back up, filled and flushed the system with 10 gallons of distilled water. Now that all that's done, I'm going to start pulling everything apart. First up, I'm going to go on and pull this hose out of the way, pull this bottom hose out of the way, and start on this thermostat housing. I was able to slip that off without messing with the belt. The belt tensioner looks kind of toasty, and I don't really want to chance messing with it. Plus these belts are pretty well fried, and I don't have any to replace them with. So for the time being, I'm just going to try to get this water pump changed out, and whenever I get some new belts ordered, I'll go on and mess with that tensioner. Water pump doesn't feel bad, but I have no idea how many miles are on it, when the last time it was replaced, and I'm right here, might as well fix it. But I may just hang on to this one for just in case. Okay, water pump is out. Need to get down in here and clean this mess up a little bit. Get all this RTV and such off of here. Get this block here cleaned up, this spot here. Now I don't have a gasket for this spot down here. I couldn't get one in time, and I needed to get this done this weekend. So I'm probably just going to cut a gasket for it. It's a pretty simple little gasket, and I've got some gasket material, so we'll make one for that. And yeah, I'll get all this mess cleaned up and start putting it back together. Okay, got our gasket surfaces cleaned up down there. So we'll go on and get this gasket out, get a little high tack put on it, get it down in place. Careful not to tear it here. Yeah, this gasket's seen better days, but I think we'll be all right. And install our pump, which, like I said, these bolts need a little bit of thread sealer on them. Okay. Now throw this over here, out of the way. Now I'm going to see if I get lucky, see if I can get this to slide back down in here where I need it. Get these belts back on. Oh, look at that. Now, the belts aren't very tight on this alternator, and they don't really need to be. But once I get this bolted back up, they'll cinch back up like they were. They weren't squeaking or anything, so I'm going to leave well enough alone. Got our pulley lined up down there. Clean this off a little bit, which this fan clutch works great, so I'm not gonna mess with it too much. I use a little bit of blue Loctite on these threads here. Get this bottom one started, and then I can take this down in here, slide it onto that bolt, and rock it up into place. Okay, the fan clutch and everything is bolted back on. Fan clutch is nice and tight. And yeah, so next thing is to cut a gasket for this and replace this hose here, which it's kind of hard to find, so I'm going a little different route with that. Replacement for that hose I'm going to use is this right here. This is a 4-inch, 1 5/8 or 41 millimeter coupler. It's a silicone coupler. It's rated for 500 degrees, and I think they said over 100 psi. And this was $8. And the hose that came off of there is only this long. So I'll get 2 hoses out of this. As you can tell, it is the right diameter. Should work great. Well, it's another day. The weather kind of shut us down yesterday. Storm rolled in, and yeah, my shop's kind of full at the moment. So this one's getting worked on in the driveway, which is, you know, pretty typical. But yeah, so let's get this buttoned up. Next step is to see if I can get this old gasket off of here in one piece so I can replicate it, or I'll just have to trace that housing on my gasket material and see if I can cut one out that way. I don't really want to just use RTV, although I could probably get away with it, but yeah, I want to try and make one. So there's most of it. I think if I get creative, I can run a little straight edge across that and finish drawing it out on my gasket material. Obviously this is too big up here where this is, but I'd rather it be a little too big, and then I can cut it down. Not too bad. We'll make those holes a little bit bigger with the bolts and glue it up. I think it'll work just fine. Okay, we've got our gasket made, and now we need to make a replacement for this here, which this is pretty crusty. So yeah, here's our little $8 coupler, which fits this just right. So just going to cut this down in length. It should be good to go. Okay. And we'll see. Here, oh yeah, slips right down in there, just like so. Now I can see if our gasket's gonna work. Go on and slide our bolts in here. Beautiful. And there we go. Now I just gotta come down in here, tighten these two hose clamps up. This side's done. All right. Got that thermostat housing back on the head. Got the lower bypass hose put in place. Hose clamps are tight, if you can see down in there. And now we're going to move on to this thermostat housing. Got a Gates OE temperature thermostat. Got to clean up this crud all over this housing and get the new gasket in, get that put on, and we'll be ready for our top hose and our bottom hose, and should pretty well be done. Got our housing cleaned up as best I can. As you can see, there's quite a bit of pitting and such in this aluminum. I'm going to venture to say that's from years of no maintenance and running the wrong coolant. But is what it is. So we'll get this bolted back up with a new gasket, new thermostat. Now we're ready to slap on the upper and lower hoses, get the system filled back up, and get the air purged out of it. Should be good to go. Got our upper hose on, new clamps on both ends. Same down there with the lower hose. Everything's buttoned up. All our clamps are tight. All our bolts are tight. Went over, double checked everything. Sensor hooked back up. So now all that's left is to fill the system back up. So since the last fill and dump I did was just distilled water, I'm going to add 1.5 gallons approximately straight coolant to this, and then top it up with distilled water. That should give us around a 50-50 mix, and we can test it if necessary, but I don't think it will be. But yeah, should be pretty well buttoned up. Went on and turned it around, get the nose uphill in the driveway a little bit, and working on getting the air out of the cooling system. Got a little bit more to get in there, and I know she's got air in it because when I crack this line over here, this T, we're not getting any flow out of the heater core or the head yet. So I'll top her up, let it run for a little bit probably, and try to get some of this air out. Well, we got a little over 1.75 gallons, so straight coolant in there. So the capacity is actually a little over 3 gallons, so should be close enough. And we've got hot heat. Just making sure all the air is purged out of it, but I think we're good to go. I don't see any leaks, so yeah. I think here in another couple days, maybe sometime next week, I'm going to pull this valve cover off and reseal it, and possibly work on deleting the CGR setup. But anyways, I think I'm going to wrap it up there for today. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We appreciate you watching.